Hello viewers, and welcome to the second part of our Suzuka video, again in the panels, but this time we're using traction control on. So we've seen it off in the last video, on in this video. Let's take a look at the driving style here. Felt a bit more comfortable. You can see I had a better start straight away, got off the line well. That's simply because I was able to put down the power really, put my foot down, rev it on the line at full power and let the traction control take care of it. Technically, in real life, traction control is better than the human instinct when it comes to the balance and the braking and everything else, simply because the computer systems that control this stuff are so advanced now. They understand a slip or a slide way quicker than we can. But it's interesting to see how it affects the driving, how it affects my speed as well. So first things first then, I'm loads more comfortable. I'm able to overtake there confidently. I'm able to use the curbs. All of these things I'm able to do that I simply wasn't able to do before. So I'm certainly, not only can I put in a more consistent pace now, but at some stages I can be quicker as well on the racetrack, and it is going to make a difference. But after this we're going to look at a little comparison to see the two in action side by side. So up to this tricky spoon curve again. There's always a lot of understeer in that first part, but this second part here as well, you know, it's kind of a late apex really, and then the corner really opens out for you. But it's getting to that point, you know, you can use that rumble strip runoff if you get it right, really getting on the power nice and early. But I'm still trying to drive the car as if I had traction control turned off. So it's not always, you won't always see the traction control on. I'm not being super aggressive in that sense. I'm still trying to maximise my speed and control it myself, but it does mean that I can use those curbs, and you'll notice when I touch curbs, traction control tends to activate. Those curbs spin you up very quickly with traction control turned off. Now the expert racers will know this, but for beginners who are out there, it does take a lot of practice, and like I say, you're not putting your foot all the way down. This is 25% throttle, off the throttle entirely on some of these corners, we'll see on the telemetry, even with traction control turned on. So traction control is not an aid that will save you and make you a better driver, but it is kind of a support, so that if you're driving reasonably well, you know, you won't be taken out all the time. But don't underestimate the challenge there, even with traction control turned on. It is very challenging in these cars, but that's why they are the harder, faster cars to drive. And in a way, I'm really pleased to see that there is this challenge here to these cars now. You know, they did feel like spaceships in Forza 2. Didn't feel right at all. There was quite a challenge to driving them in Forza 1 at the time, and they've brought that back again now, which I'm keen to see. Some of you might be looking at the lag of the wheel on screen. It's not too bad actually. It looks worse on the camera than it actually feels. It feels pretty instantaneous when you're actually playing the game. Certainly nothing like, say, Formula 1 or anything else like that. It's pretty good actually. So again, trying to maximise my speed in the panels. But it's not really quick enough to win this race for me at the moment. You know, if I practiced, I could probably knock off a bit more time. I'd probably need a better tuning setup to win the race, and even then, that would be at a push. You know, I'd need to be going at least a second and a half a lap faster. With only 2 laps per race, there really isn't the time to muck about. You need to be very aggressive. I went round the outside there, 130R, a bit risky, but made it. Nearly outbraked myself as well into the chicane. But round the final corner, got a podium, job done. Panels will be pleased about that one, I think. The 2-lap sprint race is over. Nice to see those replays as well, really nice replay cams. So now onto telemetry. Again, we could see full power at the start there. There's no progression of power, it's just put your foot down and it sorts it all out for you. Much more aggressive driving style around these first couple of corners, and I feel quite comfortable once I get into this section here. It's a really nice flowing section, nice positive camber. This is a little bit off camber uphill, and then downhill a little bit, and then up the Dunlop curve uphill. It's a tricky one. There's always, you need the corner to open out, so you can't get on, then you can get on the power basically. It's a late corner that you can get on the power on. Before then, you're always progressively trying to get a bit more speed, accelerate a bit more, because it's always opening for you before it really opens. I saw an opportunity there. AI was too slow, might as well take that position. So that's another car out the way. Tricky with this hairpin, really struggling with it. I'm braking nice and early, I'm turning in, but The car was just wasn't biting, basically. Couldn't get it into that corner at all. Really struggling. I had a similar situation with the Formula 1 as well the other day, actually. It is a tricky corner, but I was watching the real race, and the drivers do actually struggle with that corner sometimes with understeer, so it's just one of those things in racing cars. Depends how your car is set up for the high speed and low speed corners. These would obviously be a bit of a neutral setup, bearing in mind that I haven't done any tuning to this car. I tend to use the team for tuning. They tune my cars for me in the team garage, so once there's a few in there, no doubt I'll be testing some of those as well as checking out some of their paint jobs that they've been hard at work at already. So around that first lap then, gentle through the chicane and a little bit on the power. I wanted to avoid the curbs, avoid the grass, then get on the power. And this is one of the only sections on the whole lap where you're full throttle, you know, down the straight. Before coming to the end of the straight, you're already thinking, oh my, I've got to try and scrub off some speed now. And it really is a lot more challenging than it looks. I wasn't using the whole racetrack. I wasn't getting the right line because I had no real grip to do that. I didn't feel like I could flow with the course at all. And I needed a little bit more downforce, a little bit more grip. So certainly a bit more front end downforce. I am finding that the front end is understeering something terrible. So I'm coming off the power and, you know, a little touch of brake to try and get the car in sometimes. Round to the Degners then. I like Degner 1. There's a nice point you can pick out and go for it, throw the car in. Get it wrong though and it's all over. Degner 2, you're always stamping on the brakes, turning in earlier than you expect, and then sweeping the car into it very gently again, and then lifting. See that there'll be a lift just as I go around the actual rumble strip. There you go. That was a better turn in that time. Better turning, so we actually made the corner that time, but then I took a little bit of grass on the exit, and that destabilised the car a little bit, lost a little bit of speed. Full speed around here up the hill, quite committed before braking, getting the car in nice and early before getting on the power, slowly on the power, then off again, gently, so a little gentle throttle through there before I know the corner's opened up for me. So again, it's not just putting your foot down, you're not braking and accelerating all the time. There is a braking and then a gentle acceleration before unlocking the power of these cars. They have way more power than they can cope with. So round the outside then, go for it, no mucking about, and round that final corner again. That gives you guys a little bit of an insight into the car and what's it doing with traction control turned on. Before we take a little look at a comparison between the two. Across the line. Lovely detail there on the Suzuka circuit as ever, nice to see. So traction control on then, you can see at the top, off at the bottom, pulling away from the line. You can see got a good start, the traction control below did get a knock there which would have knocked it off slightly, but they're still pretty close through the start. There's, you know, despite that, got a good line, and I'm stuck behind a bit of AI, but that's not too bad. Of course that does affect the race. If I was doing a time trial it would be slightly different, but on the whole you get to see the flowing sort of driving style. You know, I'm not necessarily massively slower, but there is a comfort of being with traction control turned on. I know I can get on that power just a little bit sooner, and traction control is going to take care of it and maximise the acceleration with limiting the wheel spin. So through Degners 1 and down to Degner 2, and at the moment TCS on is ahead. Pulled out a little bit just on that section there in that overtake. There's less traffic ahead as well now, so I'm able just to go for it. Both cars there suffering a little bit of understeer, but then it's getting on the power in these slow corners, much easier with traction control turned on. So around up at the spoon, you can see traction control turned on is ahead, it's more comfortable. Now that's not to say you can't be as quick with traction control turned off, but certainly from a consistent racing point of view, I would say that with it on you'll be quicker, because you can get out of those slow corners that little bit easier, because it's just simply easier to play. You're not having to think so much about the wheel spin, about what you're doing, and you can run over those curbs as well. You're just simply doing that with traction control off. You can run over the curbs, but it's a risky business, and you're taking an awful lot of risk there, whereas with traction control on there's no risk at all. Love this straight. to always a tricky braking, because you're braking into a corner, so it's always a tricky entry into that. I love this section though, really nice flowing nature to it. Diving the car into these positive cambers, really nice section, flowing. A lot of G-forces going on. Must be a wonderful feeling for the racing drivers around this circuit. It's tricky. It's got a range of corners, figure of 8 design, but I like it. This Degner's 1 and 2 as ever, you know, really nice. And you can see actually traction control on has pulled out quite a lead now, several seconds over traction control off, and that's simply, you know, a combination of traffic but also confidence on the power as well. Some more confidence on getting on the power. So that's a little early introduction into those. But we're just going to do the 1 lap, give you guys it's the full 2 lap, sorry. Giving you guys a little bit of a feeler of what it's like, what the driving style is like, and where the speed is and stuff like that. And I'll come back to these when I've had more practice and I've tuned setups as well to see if they make any difference to comparing the two. As we come up to through the 130R there for traction control on and round the outside. 3rd place for traction control on and 6th place for traction control off. So certainly I found some advantage there in the car and its performance. Well, viewers, that's a quick look at Suzuka. We've had races, traction control on, traction control off, a little comparison. There'll be loads more to come, cars, menus, everything else. So that's it for now, viewers. More soon.